Welcome, everybody, to another EA Zoom meeting. Today, we are joined by Susie Holbrook, and she's going to talk about the Mars cycle.
Thanks, Robin. Yeah, I'm Susie Holbrook. If you want to know more about me, please visit my webpage at susieholbrook.com, my website. I'm talking today on the Mars cycle, and being in a body can be hard. I'm a medical doctor and evolutionary astrologer, and working to combine these two for a different take on evolutionary astrology and medicine both. So trying to really integrate and insert relevant points for the way that this Mars energy can impact the body and different tools we can use to help through this time. First of all, let's review everybody on the same page, hopefully, about this Mars, Aries, and first house archetype. So I really want you to embody this. This will make this talk so much more relevant to you. If you can think of your own Mars, Aries, and first house, and think about it in terms of this energy going from the 12th house across the ascendant and into the first house. So what is that transition like? That is about the Neptunian world, which is that I'm part of this bigger whole. And what does it matter if I'm an individual? Because the important thing is that I'm one and that I learn how to listen to life and the flow of energy that is surrounding me. And I don't need any will. I don't need any opinion because I'm part of this bigger organism. Then we cross that ascendant point, and all of a sudden we're born and we have individuality and we have a purpose. But what is it? I have no idea who I am, but I know that it's vitally important. I'm going to survive for myself to learn more about what this mission is. You're on a horse and you're running and you're have this flag that is your own flag. So you're on this amazing mission to uncover more about yourself, and it's instinctive. The soul with Mars, Aries, and first house wants to learn about this energy, bring it up right in front of you. So that's that instinctive attraction to this process. And it can feel really wild because it's not under your control. And there's this attraction and potentially that you have to protect yourself. You have to defend against somebody getting in your way because this process is so important. It's your mission. And so as you're in that place, that energy of instinct and this amazing adventure that you're uncovering to figure more about who you are, then you get into that place of your adrenals pumping, trying to portray it with my voice, that, adrenaline, that fight or flight response, how vital and how alive we feel when we're in that place. It's about testosterone, and it's about potentially inflammation and injury, because when we're in that place all fired up, all the engines are firing. And so that is an important part of this, is understanding that through this time when this Mars is so activated and the air we breathe is filled with adrenaline, then we need to kind of make it conscious that we are feeling that way, and then take time out to take care of yourself, because we have knowledge, we can understand this and do a better job so that we don't hurt ourselves. This is part of this energy I want to portray, this amazing vibrancy and this energy we've got for starting, initiating, finding out more about ourselves. It's, not tethered, it's wild, instinctive. So now enter Mars retrograde. Part of this cycle, this is what we are going to be involved with, this transition from full steam ahead. I need my independence in order to be able to be untethered, and nobody can control me because, and in fact, I will defend myself against you if you get in my way. To this Mars retrograde, all of a sudden, we're putting a tether on this direct energy. And like these horses, they're all stacked together. They can't move. This human is on my back and I can't run like I feel like I need to. So that you are feeling that potentially held back, potentially frustrated. And any retrograde planet, one aspect of it is the doubting of that energy. And of course, there's a purpose for it. There's a reason for that doubt. So, and we know in evolutionary astrology, there's more than one way to engage with any of these energies. So on one hand, it could be doubt, but doubt for a reason, that instinctive, straightforward, untethered, very authentic forward motion kind of energy potentially would help that energy to consider what it's doing, to strategize, to get the brain into the adrenal axis and to consider, what am I doing with all this energy? And also to rest. We need a break. So what is the Mars cycle? The Mars cycle has phases, and to say it in a short way, and I'm going to have a video here to illustrate this better. But the shadow from October to December is when, in forward motion, we are hitting the point at which the Mars will retrograde back through later in the cycle. So that's the shadow. We hit the retrograde part December to February, and then the direct motion again on February 23rd, 2025. And then through to the shadow, which is as far back as far forward as it goes, right? The point at which retrogradation happened in February, May. So let's look at this a little bit closer. Forward motion, enter the shadow, and then it retrogrades back through that. That was the shadow, and then forward motion. So let's see if we can do that one more time. Hitting the shadow in direct motion, and then goes back and then forward again. So that's what we're talking about. So now what I did was I made charts with Mars on the ascendant here. And so obviously I reconfigured the chart so that Mars was highlighted. That's the energy that we're birthing. And all the rest of the chart is showing as a supporting actor to that Mars. And these are key energies in this Mars cycle. So this is the chart of entering the shadow, where Mars is in Cancer in that direct motion still. So if we think about Mars in Cancer, so what is the mission? What's the flag that this chart is holding that is about kind of finding themselves? What is their defense mechanism? What are they all fired up about? Well, it's about what I need to feel nourished. What do I need to calm down and feel secure? That's what Cancer is about. And so somebody with the Cancerian Mars is going to be very in touch with how they feel and what they need to feel comfortable, So they're very willing to stay home in their pajamas with their slippers on. There's somebody that does really well with working from home. They're very in tune with their rhythms, and rightfully so. That's what this Mars is needing at this point. and they're going to be a bit defensive. They're going to be a bit emotional, and they don't really care how they look because that's not what their weapon is. You know, their weapon is understanding how they feel. The feeling nature is so important. And trining that Mars, that very emotional Mars, we have the moon in Scorpio conjunct Venus in Scorpio. So these really work well together. That moon is empowering their need for emotionality and understanding that process, you know, going deep. Now, we have in kind of a very different side to this chart, which is the South Node and Sun and Mercury in Libra, in the third house even. So what that is much more reserved. It cares more about being in control, looking cool, like everything is under control. I know what I'm doing, and is very intelligent. So we have, these are at odds with each other. One caring about being cool, calm, and collected, and the other not caring and just really being involved with what they need emotionally, how I feel, how am I nourished? You know, that's the horse they're riding is about making themselves feel emotionally comfortable. And the other aspect in this chart that I think is so telling is that this Mars up here conjunct Neptune and this Saturn. This energy up here is one that's going to be a recurring theme about the initiatory energy with this Mars, Aries archetype, and the combination of that with Neptune, which is about the wild, you know, open possibility, you know, is that we really the wide open spaces, you know, it's about nature, it's about being supported by our life, and that complete and total freedom. These two together are very wild, this Mars and this Neptune. So that's kind of a heads up about that coming up. So this is the next, I think, energy change in this Mars cycle, where Mars goes retrograde. So this happens December 6th. And I put again Mars on the ascendant because this is the birthed energy. You know, this is the wild instinctive attraction. And what does this Mars need? What is this energy in this chart with this Mars? Well, it's about I am birthing and attracted to what I can bring as my gift. You know, what is my gift? What's my offering that is only mine to give? That's my creative love is held out for you to grab. That this very personal, very warm, and very kind of instinctive and untamed kind of Mars in Leo. But we now see that this is stationary. At this point, instead of this Mars that has so much enthusiasm, so much creative process, is all of a sudden now we've lassoed it and it is stopped. So that I hope we can all feel this feeling of my adrenals have now been like gone crazy, that I am held back, I'm restrained, and I can't do what I feel like I need to do. Like that is, it's awful feeling. Then we also have Pluto here in opposition. So not only are you being forced to doubt, you know, your creative process, what you have to gift, all of a sudden is being held up for very close scrutiny. That's that Pluto. So there's a question about, are you good enough? You know, is what you instinctively want to offer going to work and a pass muster? And so a very intense signature here. And there's doubting your beliefs. You know, are we going to be renewed vision, Or is there going to be a fight for your belief? So that is this trine with the Sagittarius planets down here. So my creativity, you know, my faith, my beliefs are held up for evaluation. So not only is this in opposition to this air over here, we have these Sag planets in opposition to this Jupiter in Gemini. Again, there's doubt, there's question. And you know, this Sag down here wants to be the bringer of their faith and their belief and save us all with that energy. But this Jupiter isn't so sure that you know the answer, and it wants to gather more data. And you know, if you look real close at this, you can see that both this Mercury and this Jupiter are retrograde, along with this Mars retrograding. And so this very interned energy, doubting, questioning. And this T-square here has this Saturn in Pisces at the apex. So it's another, like I said, this vibe of Pisces about, is life going to support me? Or do I need to, you know, my adrenals are already engaged, and is this going to be another way that my adrenals are firing because I have no control over what's happening? Can I trust, or am I going to worry and hold on with my fingernails? So this, it's an intense chart, and you can really see how it could cause heart palpitations. That's this Leo Aquarius axis here, and racing heart and blood pressure. It could be too high a blood pressure, Mars in Leo, and a lot of times the Aquarian side is low blood pressure. So, you know, be very aware of these feelings in your body, because we'll talk about ways to help. So Mars, the next energetic shift is when, during retrograde motion, Mars enters into Cancer. So, you know, with the Mars in Leo in retrograde motion, we are reined in and we're having to think twice about our creative purpose. And now we're having to think twice about how we feel, what we need to feel comfortable. Usually Mars in Cancer knows all about what they need. And now we're questioning that, like, what do I really need? What will support me? What will keep my adrenals comfortable? And so the crisis of self-knowledge and truth and belief versus, so we're questioning our truth and our belief with this Mercury that's in Sagittarius. So it's a yod configuration, these two arms of this yod. This is the side of the yod that we're working on, that we have the ability to focus in order to make this Mars feel better. So we're working the Virgo aspect arm of this yod is about my belief, you know, working to understand what is valid in my belief system, what holds water, what is strong enough to stand the test of this question about what I need emotionally. You know, we're struggling a little bit. And then on this arm of it, again, is that Neptunian side. Can I trust life to support me and my beliefs, and the, you know, the water that buoys us up and protects us from harm? Is it really going to work, or am I going to drown? And you can see how potentially with this chart, this Mars in Cancer very much could bring on acid reflux, gastroesophageal reflux. You know, Cancer is about the stomach and the gastrointestinal system. Mars is about that, you know, the heat. And then this is about a clinical condition, conceivably. And also Aquarius is about the mind and the nervous system. So possibly about brain fog. Not trying to scare you, just trying to bring this up in case you do start to notice through these different points in this Mars cycle that we're at risk for this Mars being uncontrolled. You know, and it depends in large measure to the way you relate to your own Mars. Like, do you have a good relationship with that? Or are you already under the influence of inflammation in your body, on adrenal stress, and there's acute adrenal stress and chronic adrenal stress. So these are felt differently in the body. And through this time, if you're one that kind of idles on the adrenal overproduction end of the spectrum, then this could push you over into adrenal fatigue, for example. So it's an important point to bring up. Now, another archetype that's being highlighted here is the nodal axis is at 0 degrees, it's stationary, it's going to change sign. And right there by that Neptune again. So really in the hot seat with a lot of amped up energy is our fight for our relationship with spirit, or our relationship with feeling, are we feeling out of control, or are we feeling buoyed up and supported by life and the unseen energy that surrounds us all the time? So it's something to consider, some things that might help during this really amped up vibe is, like a journal about our gratitude, and maybe quiet walks by running water, walking fast by running water, where we're using our adrenal output but getting the soft, measured, relaxing, kind of supportive vibe that nature is there to support us, that kind of thing. So this is during the Mars cycle, when Mars goes direct. The process that we're birthing is after Mars has retrograded as far back as it will in Cancer. And now we have had that tether on the horse, and we're letting the horse go. And so what do we think will happen? A lot of energy release, or it's about an arrow being drawn back, and then during the retrograde phase, it's drawn back and held under this potential energy pressure, and we let it go. And so there's a lot of energy that we have at our disposal. And what are we going to do with that? So think about it, February 23rd, plan for this point. This is a very emotional Mars. So be very aware of your emotions. And, hopefully through that retrograde cycle, when we've asked a lot of really deep questions about who we are and what we're producing, what we're creating, what we're gifting from ourselves, and then back into the emotionality and what do we need, what we're questioning that. And hopefully through that deep internal process, we really understand ourselves more. We've analyzed it. And so that we can make it obvious, make it intellectual. It's not only in our gut, it's not only in our emotions, but it's in our conscious awareness also, with that Pluto in Aquarius opposing it. And so that now, hopefully we're in a position that we can give ourselves exactly what we need. And we can use that energy for positive direct action. So we have this square up here to this Aries, again, part of the Aries cycle, this Venus in Aries. So it knows what it wants, and there might be a little battle of wills. What do our emotional bodies need, to feel comfortable? And what are we instinctively attracted to? And if we're aware, we've made it a known, understood, conceptualized process, then they can work together so that we know exactly what we're doing with this emotional energy. But again, we have all this Neptune up here. So, if we've made peace with and really understood our beliefs and what gives us that sense of faith, and that we feel supported and buoyed up by life, then this can all be synced together and to work for us. But there's going to be a lot of energy release come February 23rd and thereafter. But remember that this Aries, this Venus in Aries, will retrograde on March 2nd. So be prepared for, again, more interning energy, which is fine, it's fine. And then this is when Mars at 6 degrees Leo is through the whole cycle. And we see this square here, right? I mean, this Mars feels good. This Mars knows what it wants, knows who it is, and will bring it. And this Pluto, hopefully through the whole retrograde cycle, we've intellectualized all these different energies. We know what we need. We know how to express it. We can be very intellectually proud that we can bring this creative offering. And then this Sun in Taurus, we can make it successfully established. We can flesh it out successfully and make it last. And it is connected to our values. And so this could work in the opposite way if we haven't done our processing. But if we've, through this intellectualization, that we can understand this and do a good job. And again, this up here, we now have Venus in forward motion in Aries, and we have Neptune change sign and is now in Aries as well. And because we've done our work and our process on using the buoyancy of the energy surrounding us, and we trust, we know what we're doing, and can use this all for the best possible way. So talking about the functional medicine contribution to this potentially stressful, but if we understand it and we can prepare for it, we can help our body get through it. So this could be the inflammatory effects of Mars Aries first house if we don't have it understood and aren't working, if we're not working it, if we're not healing ourselves. But if we make it controlled and we understand it, then, how much better does this feel in our body if it's controlled and not allowed to run wild, inflamed? So Mars effects on the body, possibly, it depends your relationship with your Mars. And if you've, had a stress Mars from your natal chart, but you've done the necessary work, then you could move through all this with a successful outcome. But just to be aware, so that if you start to feel these things through this Mars cycle, then we have a remedy for you. So possible effects on the brain: anxiety, agitation, anger. Those can be acute effects. Brain fog, depression, and fatigue actually can show up if you have chronic adrenal effects. The gut can be about issues or difficulty with digestion. The gut microbiome can be affected, and that affects everywhere in the body. And leaky gut also can be felt everywhere in the body because of the long-ranging effects and how everything interacts with everything else. The immune system can be affected. The white blood cells are definitely a Mars ruled kind of body organ and process. So it can be about defending against infection, or the autoimmunity piece can be seen with Mars if Pisces is in the loop, which is what we're coming into. So be very careful about taking care of your Mars if you have a natal susceptibility to autoimmunity. And hormone dysregulation, menstrual irregularities, libido, sex drive can be acutely affected, and chronically can be low sex drive. And blood could be anemia, especially if it's chronic. And heart can be affected with high or low blood pressure, as I mentioned, or even heart attack, So if Saturn is in there, it could be a heart attack with diminished blood flow. Lungs can be a signature with asthma, or difficulty breathing, and injury, definitely injury prone through this time. So be very careful, protect your head, or it could be injury any place in the body. So what are some suggestions to help with this? Again, awareness. And, because what is the soul's evolutionary need during this time? Well, it is about questioning our own natal Mars, thinking about this from an evolutionary astrology perspective. Think about your first house Aries and Mars, and where is it running wild? Where do you need to take a second and rethink and consider and rest potentially, take a minute. We don't have to go hard and fast all the time. But treatment for Mars, anti-inflammatories, food first, always, fruits and vegetables and cultured food, because it's good for the gut microbiome for sure. And moving this out of the way, and antioxidant support with that. Supplements, curcumin, vitamin D, vitamin C also, omega-3 fatty acids, and B complex. These things help support our adrenal glands, which if we give them all the support, then they're less likely to, to play dead with chronic fatigue, adrenal fatigue. And exercise, moderate exercise, not excessive, 150 minutes weekly tops. And then mindfulness. I mean, in general, you want to listen to your body, and breathing, meditation, Tai Chi, yoga, gratitude journal for sure. Coming into this nodal axis change with Virgo Pisces, the gratitude journal is going to be very helpful. Adaptogens are really, really cool chemicals that if you have, because what they do is they're like the Libra factor. If you have too much of something, it helps to balance it. If you have too little of something, it helps to balance it. And so these are really good to balance that Mars effect. So there's adaptogens that are good for treating acute adrenal excess or Mars excess, and for chronic, those of you that have, had this kind of more long-term Mars effect. Some suggestions for helping if you have chronic adrenal fatigue, for example. So acute stress might be ashwagandha, L-theanine, and passion flower. And chronic stress, ashwagandha works for both, Rehmannia, and Asian ginseng, which is the Panax type. And please, though, always talk to your medical provider regarding or starting and changing medication. So just always a good idea. But these are some suggestions to help with that, to help to modulate. We have this awareness. We've got the gift of astrology. So we can use these things to help our bodies as we're, participating in soul growth. So the next part of this is going to be using a volunteer's chart to look at this Mars, Aries, first house kind of signature. So I think we've got our volunteer in line and ready to go, right?
Yes, I'm
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Thanks so much for volunteering for this.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
And so I thought, I'm just going to validate that you're okay if I just dive in. And since we're talking about Mars, Aries, and first house, I just thought that I would start there. And but please, you're welcome to interrupt and chime in. And I will stop and give you time to give feedback about what's coming out through this process. Does that sound okay?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you. Mhm.
So I thought we'd just start right up here in Mars country in your chart. And so if we think about this Mars Aries first house energy about, what is being birthed, what is the flag that you're carrying that is about you, you're uncovering who you are and what energy you want to bring in and learn about yourself with, because you're what's important on this journey. And if I look at this, I would say, it's a nice, happy Mars. It's completely free and unfettered in Sagittarius. Your faith, your belief, and your trust is so paramount, tantamount to death. If someone takes away your belief system, then man, oh man, are they in for a fight. And rightfully so. It's something that's so important for you to fight your life from, and that birthing your belief system. It's a brand new cycle, and that's right next to moon here. So it's what we were talking about with, that we talked about Mars in Cancer, and it's a very similar energy here, is that Mars is understanding what it needs to feel nourished, what it needs to feel secure. And how important is it that you birth that for you, that you validate your need to take time, your need to, to be who you are. And man, this is a signature of it's so important for you to stand up for yourself, to feel safe in that place of being the warrior. And no, if anybody tries to take that from you, oh my goodness, I hope you stand up to them, because it is so important for you. And this mission that is your, your personality. It's your whole individual identity. And in the 8th house, that there's been some times in your life where you've been questioned, where you've maybe been made to feel that it's not okay to be who you are, that what you think and feel and need is not validated or justified, and maybe shamed. And that Mars is retrograde. And so there's been some need to, to go deep and to really question, any planet opposing the sun there's a question about the sun and the Mars, about your beliefs, about your ability even to understand what you need. There's a lot of questioning here, a lot of doubting, and somebody is probably responsible for that. I would say that the moon being there, and I hope I'm not going where I shouldn't, but that you might have had to fight your, some maternal figure, that there was a kind of opposing views here, and that it was a very sensitive point for you, and a lot of, your gift, your creative vision is to allow yourself to, the generosity to uncover what you need. It's this very questing mind. It's like, I'm going to bring in you need to validate your need to go looking for the truth, that maybe you grew up in a family that shoved what was right down your throat and that fought you every step of the way, that you were an independent thinker, that you questioned everything, and that you needed to do that, but it wasn't an easy process. Um,
Can I jump in?
yeah, please do.
Okay. Okay, so because I feel like we're just slightly to the left of how
Okay.
the symbolism has expressed itself in my life.
Okay.
First, I should say that the Neptune and Sun and Moon and Mercury and there's this whole opposition thing. They play with each other very tightly together.
Uh-huh.
So, for example, neither my mother nor my father were interested in me.
Okay.
So they were both emotionally unavailable. And in the case of my mother, I had a spiritual understanding that it was because I needed to learn to love myself in this life. I had that understanding in my teens. So I forgave her and accepted that I co-created that mother, that we made an agreement because I needed to learn how to love myself. But I think that I was too young, or that I didn't believe that all the way to the bottom, because it seemed like I put a Band-Aid over it that didn't actually like it ripped off in my 40s. I realized I was very angry at my mother because
Uh-huh.
she just didn't love me, and I didn't understand that. And my father, well, it's kind of complicated, but my mother and my father divorced when I was quite young, and we were living in Florida and he was living in California. And when I was 5, she put us on an airplane to go stay with my father and said there was a note in our luggage, me and my sister, a note in the luggage saying, well, when I can, I'm going to come back and get these kids. But because they disliked each other so much, there was this battle, and he didn't want to give us up, but not because he loved me, but because he disliked my mom. So when the court case finally came, they gave my sister to my father, that's the Mercury conjunct Sun, and they gave me to my mother. And my mother, it was like I didn't exist. She didn't care at all. She just loved the daughter that she couldn't get. So there's that opposition in play. And I do understand the spiritual nature of our relationship, but I still don't quite understand. I mean, I'm a cat mom, but if something came out of my loins, I can't imagine not caring about that person. I left the United States almost 30 years ago, and she's never called me once. Like I forgive her, and I hope that I have a depth of forgiveness for her. But I know that for a long time, for at least 10 years, I was quite angry. So there's that anger in there with the mom. And I also feel that the Neptune there, you were talking about fighting for my beliefs. I never actually had to do that. My beliefs have been very far beyond consensus beliefs since I was quite young. But I have had problems with boundaries. And when I can feel somebody's feelings for many, many decades, I couldn't draw the line of where they were my feelings or another person's feelings.
Mm-hmm.
It's only recently that I've been able to feel, okay, that's how that person is feeling. So I got involved in a lot of situations that I didn't really want to be in because I could feel that that other person needed that from me. So my boundaries have been very bad until pretty recently. I also wanted to say the point you're making about beliefs, I do feel has something to do with the South Node, because the ruler of my Mars is on the South Node.
Yes.
Jeff Wolfgreen gave me a reading, and he said that the past life that's influencing this one is that I was a nun in northern Italy, which is where I live now. And I was living a very happy life among women, growing our own food. That's all the Virgo stuff there, Virgo in the 6th house, until the men came. And the men raped and burned. And he said, in my case, that I had been impaled in the lady parts with a cross, which is quite weirdly specific. But I do have to say that in this life, I have had surgery on my lady parts, the top and the bottom. And now, because of that, I went into menopause at 34. I haven't had sex in some decades now because the surgery that I had to have on a gland in the vulva happened because that gland got an infection. And they had to do an emergency surgery in a place where they don't like to do an emergency surgery. And because of that, they weren't able to do a proper job. So now the gland that usually makes the happy juice, if it begins to make that, there's no outdoor anymore. They cauterize the door. So it creates a problem. So I just went, that's okay. I had enough. This is part of, I think, with Mars retrograde, is that I went full on with the sexual exploration. And then at some point in my life, circumstances went, you're done now. So it was like a full stop. So I think that's interesting as well.
Mhm.
And after I had that surgery, and then I'll give you back the talking stick, I went to see Barbara Brennan, energy healer, to ask about my chakras. And he said, oh, I can see that your root chakra is hanging 2 inches down and to the left of where it should be. And I thought, yeah, that seems right. So yeah, so just more to your point.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's
Yeah.
always so fascinating, and you have so much information that I learned so much. So I appreciate that.
Mhm.
And I think with your sun and Mercury is ruler of all this Virgo over here in the second house in this lifetime. I don't want to put my foot where I shouldn't, but something about your sexual nature being with yourself, that
Hmm.
there's something there um about your creativity, about some process that you're grounding through this celibacy, that your energies, that root chakra being healed in that way in this lifetime, that you are the best healer for it, hence all this suffering. But there's something there about this internal, this closed circuit, really, that you aren't sharing that, that is kept inside. And in some ways, there's a fullness there, or a love and a joy and a healing that comes with you being kind of self-sufficient in that way.
Can
And
I, Susie, can I say something about that to
yes.
add to your point? Yes, I feel what you're saying now, that it is about sort of me closing the loop on myself and not
Mhm.
really allowing anyone inside my person
Yep.
anymore. And it relates to exercise. So from when I was like 11 to when I was like 51, I exercised like a maniac.
Mm.
And in 2021, I just went, I'm tired. I'm
Mhm.
stopping. And I haven't done any, I mean, I feel the need to get back to the yoga, but I feel better than I did before.
Mhm.
It was this, I was just crazy. And I was, notice how much mutability is in this chart. The
Mhm.
Sag, the Gemini, the Virgo, the Pisces, super
Mhm.
mutable. So
Mhm.
I felt like I was just dissipating all my energy
Mm.
and all my sexual energy as well. Like I was
Mhm.
very, very interested in it for a while. I
Mhm.
just was going on, like would go out to find whatever situation I could get myself into. Like I was overly interested in it. And I feel so much better now that I don't have to deal with that type of energy. That loop is closed. I also
Mhm.
want to say that for a while, when I moved to America, when I moved away from America, and I didn't speak the language of the place, the language trauma, the travel trauma, immigration trauma, is related to the South Node
Mhm.
and the Mars and the
Mm.
Sag.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
live in a place where I don't speak the language. I lived for 20 years in a different nation where I didn't speak the language. And I think that was meant to help me stay within myself.
Mhm.
But when I realized that the person that I had moved away from America with didn't love me and I didn't love him, I turned to drugs.
Okay.
And I did about 6 years of ecstasy, really heavy. And when you were mentioning what the Mars being related to the adrenals, I
Mhm.
felt at some point, oh my God, I just can't even get out of bed anymore. Like for
Mhm.
2 years, I couldn't get out of bed anymore. And I went, okay, full stop. That's another good thing with having an Aries ascendant and this heavy Mars is that my willpower is, when I decide
Mhm.
something, that's it. I just went full stop. I'm not going to do this. I can't do this anymore. So I just stopped doing that. So also, yeah, the drugs and the Piscean thing, because Neptune is perfectly trine the North Node. So there is like the Jupiter and the yeah, the Mars conjunct Neptune, and then the nodal axis, and it's also tied up with itself.
Well, and I think also if we look at this signature of, you know, there's like this circuit here with the ascendant, right? What you're birthing in this life, you know, you're this new energy. Like, what is this, you know, this flag that you're bearing of new process, new adventure? What am I learning about? Well, it's up there, that Mars, right? You're learning about, what do I believe? What's my faith? And what can I put faith in? You know, and it's a question in the 8th house. You know, it's not an easy process. You know, it's something has to die there. And going through these intense experiences helps you with that process, you know. And that and then if we go to and it's you know, it's been a few lifetimes that you have been trying to heal your beliefs, trying to heal and have faith in something. And so you know, basically I feel like this family that you were born into, you know, getting more info from your story, this family you were born into, but really threw you back on yourself. It did not give you emotionally anything that you needed, you know. And so then you were thrown back upon yourself. It's like, okay, well, what do I think? What do I need? What makes sense to me? You know, and so because it threw you into your own spiritual class, you know, like you weren't the same, you know, you weren't the same consensus that your family was, you know, kind of nature. And so being of the individuated spiritual kind of place, then you had to look in different places. But that in that way, then you went looking for, what do I believe? What is, you know, what is there that I can really trust? And I think, I mean, it's hard. I mean, you suffered, but also, and you know, you really, in some ways, that was the process to uncover what really mattered to you.
I think what the question is what do I want?
Yeah.
Yeah, who am I? What do I want? Because I feel that, like I was mentioning with the soft boundaries and not knowing who's feeling what is what do I want here? It was always I was too reactive to other people's feelings. And I wanted to mention, my mother has Neptune in Libra exactly on her ascendant. So this conjunction here of the moon, and my mom, she sees her self-concept is of a very spiritual person. But you know, I guess that's debatable. But but so she wasn't super consensus. She acts consensus, but she thinks she's very spiritual. So I think that's also interesting. The first astrology book that I ever read, I pulled out of her bookshelf. So I thank her for that. But yeah. Yeah, so ultimately, I think the question with this Mars is who am I and what do I want? Because I find that to be, even in my 50s, my mid 50s now, I still have difficulty answering that question. What do I want? Because I'm too busy. Okay, but what does he need? And what do they need? And so what do I want? Who am I? I feel the chart is asking me, and I'm still like, I don't know.
Well, and I think all of the questing, you know, this is search for truth. This, you know, the Gemini, Sag, and I think the lesson is that it's an ongoing discussion, really, you know, and that there isn't one right answer, and it'll probably be, again, all the mutable. There's one layer, and then it's a spiral. It's not an endpoint, you know.
I'm also learning to be more responsive rather than reactive and impulsive. You know, Sag likes to respond, and Aries is just a reaction. So I feel that that's part of my lesson as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. The ping ponging is that adrenal fatigue, brings
Mm,
about that adrenal fatigue. So I think definitely kind of that middle way, I mean, although that's easy to say and it's really difficult with this chart. I've got oppositions too, and it is easy to ping pong back and forth, but I think it's breathing through, don't you think?
mm. Yes, especially with the Gemini, the breathing is very important. I sang professionally for some years. And with the vagus nerve, how that gets activated by singing and the deep breathing and stuff. And yeah, so I miss that. And I do think that I need to move back towards exercise, but gentle exercise now.
Well,
Yeah.
your adrenal glands, I mean, it's also the Virgo. The Virgo is such an anxiety prone
Mm-hmm.
kind of, situation experience. And you've got a lot of energy there and a double signature in the 6th house. So and you're going to be, coming into this nodal switch right across Virgo and Pisces. And so this is going to be, brought up and for renegotiation. And so I think, all these tools that you can pull out, the breathing and the exercise,
The journaling, right, as you were
journaling,
mentioning.
gratitude.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have anything else you want to focus on for a little bit? I mean, I think, it's interesting. I just saw that Saturn in Taurus, and, it is the focal point of a yod.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then your sun in the 2nd house is restating that to some extent with, that these fire energies, Saturn in the 1st house, like, what am I accountable for in this life? Accountable to? And
The self in the 1st house. But that again
exactly,
is who am
the
I?
self.
Yeah, it's making me focus on who am I. And even the sun in the 2nd house is substantiating my identity. Is like, again, who am I? There's a lot of who am I here.
But on the other side of it, I think it is about really anything that calms you down is a good thing for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that Taurus, it's engaging that, like singing is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
If you like food, just, something delicious.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that calms you down, I would say, no matter what it is, that I would say, probably meditating into that root, or deep breathing into it, or singing into it, or,
Mm-hmm. 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 I did get initiated into transcendental meditation in my early 20s.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And I've seen like a psychic surgeon. I went and drank ayahuasca in the Amazon. I've definitely been doing all the experiences, the seeking that you were mentioning. I did want to say too that with this retrograde Mars and the Aries ascendant, I feel the need to throw myself out into situations. But then when I do, the doubt of the Virgo and the doubt of the retrograde and the doubt of the Gemini makes me, so I feel like 2 steps forward and then 2 steps back. Then I feel like I just made an ass of myself, or, I put myself forward and I wasn't ready, or I feel like there's a lot of stuttering, jittery kind of movements with putting myself forward. And maybe this is relevant, but when I left the United States, I had, of course, a career when I left, and I planned to continue working. But because we moved to a country we weren't planning to move to, and I didn't know the language at that time, it was France. I didn't work, and then we moved to Barcelona for 20 years, and then I didn't work. I was involved in theater and I was singing groups and other stuff, but I wasn't making any money. And when we met and when we left, Saturn was passing over my North Node, and he is about to do it again. This person has been the soul. He's been like the external to the world, the Saturn kind of archetype, the out into the world archetype, and I really embodied my moon, the drugs and the anger at the mom and all that stuff. And now it's coming back around again. And I can see, because when COVID happened, I thought, okay, great. We had moved to now Italy, and I don't speak Italian. So I thought, okay, I need to get a career now and put my feet back under me. And so this has been the last 4 years of really deciding who I am and what I want and what kind of career that I want for me. And Saturn is about to again pass over the North Node and the ascendant. And I have a feeling that at that time I am going to take back that archetype, because I feel like I gave that archetype to somebody else for the last Saturn cycle. And really, yeah, it is about finding myself and solidifying who I am, I think.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's a hard slog, but I guess that I went too deep into the Neptunian archetype. I just wanted to escape my life because I didn't really understand what was happening, like why I had to leave my culture. And because I am very language oriented, I love to write, I love to read like a demon. Obviously, all the Virgo and the Gemini and the Sag. So like language is really important to me. And so to be in a place with somebody that didn't love me and I don't love him, and I can't speak to anyone. I have no money of my own. It was really hard. I didn't understand what my life was about. And so now I'm putting all the dots back together and taking back all my power and figuring out what I want and where I want to
hear
live.
it in your voice. I hear, I hear that power. I hear that knowing of yourself. And, even if it doesn't feel like it's completely settled, I mean, that back and forth is always going to be there. And rightfully so, because it's that initiation is so much a part of you. And this won't be the last time that you initiate, I mean, that is your path. But if you can activate that Saturn, activate the second house, and at least feel that coming together in peace in some way, each time, it doesn't have to be the end for you. Obviously, it won't be, in order for you to feel calm in that moment. Do you know what I'm saying?
Are you talking about Saturn?
I'm talking about the Taurus archetypes in the chart. So the Saturn in Taurus and the second house, Mercury and Venus and Mercury and Sun. And the way that I hear that the ping pongy stuff and, and the adrenal glands and the stress and the, beat myself up, the Virgo. I hear that in your voice in some aspects of your story. But I also am now starting to hear this, it's what it is an intention to validate myself, an intention to be who I am, an intention to no longer have somebody doing it for me, and that there's a resonance there that will be a stability with all the change.
Definitely creating stability for myself is really paramount now. Yeah. I do think also like the Mars retrograde, just one final comment about that being in Sag, that the problem with the languages is somehow some past life stuff. I don't know. I know that there's been immigration trauma. That's what the Jupiter on the South Node, and I feel it. I felt it again when I landed here and went, oh my God. And the fact that I find it very difficult to learn a foreign language. And it's about believing I can do it or not. I can sense that deep inside. Like, I have lived with an Italian guy for 26 years, the same guy that I left America with. And now we're living in Italy. So I'm surrounded by it. If I wanted to speak it all day, I could. But yet there's someone inside that goes, no, I don't think I can. And so I haven't learned it.
Well, I think it's coming in. So that South Node in Virgo, one aspect of that, it is about this sense of perfection, right? And that there's a lack in Virgo, because they always see the possibility of perfection. And so that when they're not there, then they're not anywhere. And so that's kind of an external projection of your own internal feeling of lack.
A doubt. Yeah.
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 So don't do that anymore.
Yeah. 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 Easier said than done. But yeah, I think it's poke a poke. That's something that I learned in Spain, which is little by little. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and you know, one way, I have Virgo in my chart too. One way I like to look at Virgo is that, yeah, you see perfection, right? But that's a path of impossibility, you know? And so what we need to do is be now in the moment, in the process, right? And so the meditation is in the process of our Virgo, you know, whatever it is, we're in the process of making better. But the perfection is not the goal. The perfection is what we're doing in the moment.
Agree. Yeah.
I love this conversation, and I love you. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Susie. It's been really
You're
interesting.
welcome.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for your comments.
Oh, you're very welcome. You're welcome to text me. I'll send you my information
Great.
and my email. Yeah, I mean.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, that's all. Waiting to see if Robin gets back.
That was awesome. That was really very interesting.
Thank you.
And having Mars retrograde, I could really relate to a lot of it.
Ah, yeah.
I'm glad.
I had a question about the ashwagandha.
Oh, yeah.
You were talking about that for autoimmune, and I was under the impression that it could overstimulate the immune system and that it wasn't good if you had autoimmune issues.
Autoimmune.
Yeah.
Well, ashwagandha being an adaptogen, it actually doesn't overdo. It balances. It's the Libra. So if you have, for example, what it does, so what ashwagandha does is it works with the adrenal gland to help it balance, to help so that it doesn't overshoot, and to help modulate the expression of the cortisol. And so it's really good for overly productive, like overstressed adrenals, or even for, you know, the chronic adrenal fatigue is when your adrenal glands can't keep up anymore. And so instead of feeling, you know, like you have to run from that dinosaur that's chasing you, you like can't get out of bed, you know? And so, for example, and so it's good for both, for either side, because of that adaptogenic property that it has.
It's good to know.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It was very informative.
Good. And, you know, I'm available for readings. People can definitely go to my website if they want more information about me, SuzieHolbrook.com.
Thank you very much for this conversation.
Oh,
Yes, and thank you.
thanks for offering.
Yes, thank you for volunteering your chart.
Thanks, Robin, for setting it up. I appreciate that.